Well, tensions between the United States and Russia have dramatically escalated, and now a Russian official is talking about the possibility of World War III.
You're here to talk about the Bilderberg meeting, which is taking place as we speak in Stockholm, in Sweden. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, the big bad Bilderberg boys are back in town. Everybody's favorite group from which wars spring. Rumors of wars, plans for wars, many allege. Of course, they're meeting in Stockholm, Sweden. It's their 71st meeting in 71 years, as I mentioned last week when I did a very brief preliminary. We do have, of course, they release it at the last minute. They're just so accommodating. We do have the list of their topics, many of which are bluntly one word, but I guess we have to go with it. Here's their detailed list: transatlantic relationship. Then we have Ukraine. Then U.S. economy. Europe is another one. Middle East, that's kind of interesting right now. Authoritarian access, anybody that's not a globalist is an authoritarian. Defense, innovation, and resilience. Then AI, deterrence, and national security. Another one, proliferation. Then geopolitics of energy and critical minerals. And finally, depopulation and migration, 11 topics in all. And as you see that some of those are one word, you could literally drive a tank through them and not even rub on the sides. But anyway, we have a little bit of footage as I'm describing some of the participants. Thanks to Dan Dix for Press for Truth. He's quite a trooper out there. Anyway, some of the key attendees, we have Albert Bourla of Pfizer. He's becoming a fixture there at Bilderberg. Good for him. Some of the other interesting ones, there's about 140 from North America and Europe like usual. We have Christopher Donahue, the U.S. commander for the U.S. Army in Europe and Africa. We also have, of course, Matthias Döpfner of Axel Springer. He's been working with AI creators and promoters to merge and bring connections between the mass media cartel and AI. There's a lot going on there. We see Peter Thiel being tailed by Dan Dix here in that footage as I'm speaking. A very militant behavior as he exhibited there, just marching forward without saying a word. But some of the others are Michael Kratsios, director of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. Robert Lighthizer, who in Trump's first term was his trade negotiator. He's returning as a privateer, the Center for American Trade. We also have Samuel Papero, the commander of the U.S. Indo-Pacific branch of the Army. In terms of the country of the UK, we have the Member of Parliament, Jeremy Hunt, who's there. The President of the Bundestag, Julia Klöckner. Some other interesting ones. Now, the Bank for International Settlements, the central bank of the central banks, they don't often have someone at Bilderberg. Now they do. Pablo Hernandez, general manager-elect of the Bank for International Settlements. You have Gideon Rachman of the Financial Times, Thomas Friedman of the New York Times, some of the key ones there, but not quite as many. Usually you have like 9 or 10, maybe 11, possibly up to a dozen media sellouts who go in there and collaborate with the globalist movement here, the globalist Bilderbergers, but don't actually ever write about it. So that's a lot of the goings on, some of the people there. And of course, there'll be much more in the days and weeks ahead as I work on my major article about this and look for all the ways that this intersects the different topics, the different participants and whatnot. So we'll leave it there for now, but much more connection-wise with Ditchley a little later on in today's show.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much for that.
I quite enjoyed Peter Thiel fleeing the cameraman with that stern look on his face, like he didn't want anybody to know he was there.
He wasn't terribly happy.
Libertarian, Peter Thiel.
Iran says an unprecedented attack by Israel on its nuclear program is a declaration of war, as Donald Trump warned the country that worse could be to come. The first attacks were launched by Israel's military overnight. Multiple strikes were reported in and around Tehran, as well as the Natanz nuclear facility and a military site in Piranshah near the Iraqi border. Top Iranian military officials and nuclear scientists were also killed. In response, Iran launched drone attacks on Israel. As world leaders called for restraint, President Trump said Tehran needs to make a deal over its nuclear program before there is nothing left. Tonight, there are reports of further explosions in Tehran.
The Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has described the attack as criminal. The Islamic Republic of Iran's legitimate and powerful response will make the enemy regret its stupid act, he said.
This is what the streets of downtown Los Angeles looked like on Saturday, as thousands of people took to the streets to demonstrate against the government of Donald Trump and the detention of undocumented immigrants in Southern California.
And Doug Luzader has more now on this ominous war of words from Washington. Doug, this is just troubling. What is the reaction in Washington?
Well, the idea of getting Russia to the negotiating table just seems like it's not likely to happen at this point. This is something that the White House has been talking about. President Trump is clearly frustrated at Russian President Vladimir Putin, and now we've had this exchange on social media. It's not clear what the next steps here are going to be, but there's a lot of pressure coming from Congress for the administration to do more in terms of sanctions against Russia. There's a report in the Kyiv Post now that President Trump is considering lifting some of the range restrictions on weapons that we have sent to Ukraine. I mean, those come with certain restrictions on them as far as, firing deep into Russian territory. If the U.S. were to lift those restrictions, it would give Ukraine a lot more flexibility to go after Russian targets. So this is not something that Russia would want to see. We don't know if this is going to happen, but again, there is this report that it's among the options the White House is considering.
Right. And just to read the president's comment here, President Trump posted to Truth Social, "If it weren't for me, lots of really bad things would have already happened to Russia." So what do we think the president's going to do next?
Well, the president is considering lifting these range restrictions. Right. There's also been talk about perhaps economic sanctions on Russia. We have been down this path before. Nothing seems to dissuade Russia from what appears to be Putin's ultimate goal, which would be taking over the entirety of Ukraine.
All right, troubling, something to watch.
And with the world's superpowers expressing desires to expand their borders, the world's population is bracing for the next world war. Polling from YouGov has found between 40 and 55% of people in the U.S. and some of Western Europe's largest countries believe a global conflict could start in the next 5 to 10 years.
The moment a threat is detectable and predictable, which it is, that is the time to take proactive action, and that time is now.
On top of that, many European citizens lacked confidence in their country's military to defend their homeland. The U.S. saw more than 7 in 10 feeling confident about their defense capabilities should a world war start. Experts say with threats present for Canada and the relationship with Washington becoming tumultuous, now is the time for action.
But the fact is that invisible force field has disappeared or is very much fracturing and is not protecting Canadians today. And so it is imperative that Canadians wake up to the fact that it's a completely new security environment.